Hey there, how are y'all doing? So today I'm going to be talking about the 2001 movie Legally Blonde, directed by Robert Luketic. So, a word to describe this movie: fun. Okay, that's it. Bye! Ah. Oh, the hell with it. I'll do more than that. Okay, so this movie stars Reese Witherspoon, and this is probably one of her most, if not the most, iconic role of hers. And with her little dog Bruiser, who unfortunately passed away in the last year or so. He makes a pretty big impact too in this movie. And so they spend a tremendous amount of time together. Bruiser's really her most reliable companion. It's her dog, if you couldn't tell. I think the really biggest thing about this movie that makes it worth the watch is that it has a fairly unique premise. You have someone that's a sorority girl, and she seems like someone that, should be a certain kind of personality, should be just a dumb blonde. And sure, she has her moments of her stereotypical nature, but she's actually the president of her sorority. She has the highest grade point average in Delta Nu, this sorority that they put together for the movie sake. She is just all around happy with her fashion merchandising major, and she's going to do pretty well for herself, and she's excited to marry, and her boyfriend, she is thinking that they're actually going to get somewhere, and that they're actually going to be married, and that they'll have all sorts of little kids, and then she's thinking about everything that's coming together, and he even asks her out to dinner, and that's how the movie starts. There's an envelope that comes to the sorority house, and it's all decorated and prettied up for her, and she's super excited and trying to pretty much plan everything at this point. And she does all but buy the wedding dress. So why is this movie here? Why are we watching this story if we already know how it's going to end? Well, obviously it doesn't end this way. They go to dinner, and it turns out that her boyfriend ends up dumping her while she's saying "I do." Clearly quite the contrast of expectations that are going to be had. And he talks about how he's going to go to law school, and how she just isn't going to work for him, and that he needs a Jackie, not a Marilyn. And those are some particular words that really seep into her brain and just piss her off. And she thinks, well, why can't I marry you? I can be a smart person. She really is not the stereotypical blonde, even though she is in a sorority and she is blonde, and sometimes she has her moments. And she loves her nails and has those girly girl aspects, but that doesn't, define everything about her. So through a quest that really isn't going to work out in the end, to win back her boyfriend's heart, she decides, I'll go to Harvard Law School, because that's where he said he was going to go. And she studies up for the LSATs and puts together an audition video, which I frankly would be quite amazed if anyone actually won off of this application video. But to be fair, it's very fun and it's very entertaining. She's in her bikini and talking about all of this stuff about why would someone like me be wanting to go to law school? And she goes and talks about all of her qualifications and credentials. And then some guy whistles or cat calls at her, and she goes, I object. One of those really silly things that, even though no one would really say that in real life or react in that exact way before this movie came into creation, I might add, it's just fun, and it makes it worth the while. So she ends up getting just the right score, a little above it, in fact. And she decides that, voila, she's going to go to Harvard Law. And they end up starting, her and her ex-boyfriend, start law school at the same time. And they're in a small group together in terms of recruitment. And there's also Luke Wilson who's there, who's like a second or third year graduate student. And he's relatively high up in terms of the Harvard Law School scale of students, but he's still a student and helping things out, and he's not a professor at this point. So, just what's going to happen here? Well, because I mentioned Luke Wilson, you're probably thinking, oh, well, who knows what's going to happen with him, He's probably going to end up linked up with Reese Witherspoon now. If not dating, at least talking about something. And this also becomes quite apparent when you realize that Reese's ex-boyfriend is just a pain in the ass, and really, you don't want to see him back with Elle. You feel like that it was actually a blessing in disguise for her, and truly it ends up being that way when you watch the rest of the movie. So, there are a few classes that come together. There are two professors. One is the mother from 2.5 Men, the redhead, the crazy, fiery, bitchy one. Not the maid. That's the other fiery, crazy redhead on that show. And then you have this Professor Calloway. In terms of what he has done, there isn't really anything in particular that I can think of that's worth mentioning here, though I'm sure if someone's really dying to know, they could look it up on IMDb and just tell me, and we can mention that another time, even though I'm not thinking it's likely that it's going to happen. Anyway, they have these classes. For Reese's first class, she didn't know there was homework, and then there's this really snooty girl, this really bitchy girl, and you notice that she's a brunette, which doesn't make sense in terms of why I'm mentioning it right now to you, probably, but you'll see. And she gets all snooty and starts making fun of her in class and says, well, I don't think she should be allowed to be in class if she hasn't been prepared for this class. So she gets kicked out of class, and that's when she starts talking, Reese Witherspoon starts talking to Luke Wilson's character, and he provides all the tips, all of the kind of tricks around the campus, and she realizes that he's pretty nice and even says so. And she's in her new place. She's not in Malibu anymore, as someone oh so kindly informed her. But she's in the mood to get her nails done. Like I was saying before, she was getting her nails done with her friends from her sorority, and now she's in Harvard land, and she goes over to this salon, and you have Jennifer Coolidge, the oh so classy white bitch from Epic Movie, in a much better role for her. She's the person that does Reese's, and this character's name, by the way, is Elle Warner. I just love Reese Witherspoon so much that I figure mentioning her name will make me feel better, Anyway, Elle's person that takes care of her is working at the salon, and Elle is just venting about all of her problems and trying to fit in, and you get a little bit of exposition with the fact that Jennifer Coolidge's character has a big crush on the UPS guy, and he even says he has a package for her. Hardy har har. It's actually done better in the movie. It's just hard to laugh over again and again, because this has actually been a movie I've watched multiple times. Moving on. Elle calls out Jennifer Coolidge for saying that she was way too awkward about that encounter with this man. And yeah, that's true, but we all have those people that we've felt much, much too awkward around to really tell them how you feel. That happens to a lot of us, anyway. After this encounter with the nail salon, Elle goes back to her place, and it comes out that the snooty girl that called out Elle in class is Warner, is this new girlfriend of her ex-boyfriend, in other words. And you're thinking, oh, they're so well suited for each other. She's the Jackie, even has the brown hair to prove it. There you go. They end up inviting her to a party, but telling her it's a costume party. and she dresses up as a Playboy bunny, which it's great because Reese Witherspoon is totally that type and looks fantastic in it. But of course, they're just having a more casual party, as it turns out, and they just told her it was a costume to trick her. Um, she's a little bit embarrassed, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It could have been many worse things happening. But obviously, Elle feels left out, as is to be expected. And she ends up going to like the campus bookstore, still dressed up in her bunny costume. So I understand ending up in a party wearing the bunny costume and being out of place. You just didn't know any better. But were you dragged on a chain to the bookstore and commanded to wear the bunny costume in the store to buy something for your classes? What? I mean, okay, the director commanded you to, but that seems like a very odd request. I mean, I don't mind. It's eye candy, but in terms of practicality, I'm thinking, oh, that's really odd. That's got to have a lot more awkwardness to it than the party. I mean, at least the party you can just say that you were drunk as a skunk and try to justify your actions that way. And it won't be right, but it'll at least make sense. So after a little bit more dialogue and some more antics pursue Elle at Harvard, and I should mention, I said Elle Warner when I meant Elle Woods. Her ex-boyfriend's name is Warner. There you go, problem solved. These antics pursue her, but it turns out that Professor Calloway has this internship program, except you actually get to work on real cases and be a student lawyer. They play a little bit with some things of law, even though they try to make it as ethical and truthful as possible. Actually, one of the filmmakers is a former graduate from NYU Law. Fun fact. So they really did try to make it as accurate to the legal system as possible, with a little bit of flair and creativity added to it to make it a little more fun. You end up coming across this case, and this lady is convicted of killing her husband that is much older than her, even though it's pretty obvious she didn't do it, because as we find out, she turns out to be a Delta Nu, the same sorority that Elle Woods is an alum from, and they actually have quite the chemistry. And it also turns out that Elle took one of this woman's classes that helped her drop a few pounds. Regina George could have learned a lesson from them, for Pete's sake. Anyway, they recognize each other, they know each other, and they talk about how it's just not possible that it was this woman, this beautiful blonde. But then it comes out that she's not going to give them an alibi to tell them where she was on that day, which just makes it all the more suspicious, which makes you think, oh, well, what's the big deal? And then it turns out that the lady who helped Elle lose the last few pounds for her, like, spring fling or whatever, actually had liposuction, and it's built up in a pretty funny way. They go back, and she does ba-da-da-da-da, and she whispers very softly, and then a little louder, and then, just screams out liposuction at the top of her lungs, and it's pretty great. just how seriously this is taken, and of course it's not supposed to be serious. That don't make me explain why that's a joke, okay? But in their minds, it is a serious ordeal, because she actually made money off of telling people how to lose weight, even though she ends up getting liposuction. Yeah, I can at least reason, why she felt that way. Doesn't mean I agree with her. They have a few celebrity cameos. The one in particular that stands out is Raquel Welch. She's like the ex-wife of this man as opposed to the new fling. She's the one that the Delta Nu that's locked up replaced, in terms of who is hitting the hay. You have Linda Cardellini in this role, who will later go on to be in the Scooby-Doo movies, and I believe she's done some other work as well, but that's the first thing I can think of. She has her hair all dolled up, but it turns out that there's some logic that Elle can use because she's quite the fashionista, and she ends up saying that she got a perm and then showered, which apparently, I wouldn't know squat about it, but it's a big no-no in the perm world, which I really don't know anyone that's gotten a perm. I'm sure I know of someone. I just haven't heard of them ever getting one. And you can tell that there's a lot going on. There's like the pool boy. I guess because he stomped his feet at Reese Witherspoon and talked about like the designer of her shoes, that she knew that he was gay because, in her words, gay men know designers, straight men don't. Oh, okay. I mean, whatever. It's not really really worth the while to argue that. It's just like, okay, 2001. We just had different ways of approaching things, I guess. But it moves the plot forward. That's why it's there. Whether or not they really do, it's a whole different story. All right. Then you have this other character that I hadn't mentioned yet. She is actually a lot more common now than she was in 2001. She's like the lesbian feminist vegetarian. Kind of the one that you would see on those old memes of like the Rastafarian chick with the big old hat that believes that everything about her should be elevated, but anyone else is out of luck. It's not too spectacular, but she's actually a really nice character. But she doesn't really get very fleshed out in this movie. She's just kind of there as like a sideline and mentioning a few lines and makes fun of Elle a bit. So then it turns out that Professor Calloway was really just recruiting Elle Woods just to get in her pants, and she's pretty pissed about that, and rightly so. And she talks to Luke Wilson about it, and he gets his stuff together and ends up replacing him in the process, and she graduates from Harvard Law and ends up giving a commencement speech, and everyone throws their commencement hats in the air, and it's over, and I feel a lot better, and my day has been made. So I've talked about all these great things in the movie. What makes it not so good, if anything? Well, I think it's pretty hard to get a sense of realism out of this movie. Not many people are going to follow this path. In fact, maybe 3 people in total will follow this path, have the blonde sorority girl aspect of her, but then totally follow a man to law school and only for that reason, study law, do all these things to please a man, and then, get the complete 180 transformation once you're already balls deep in law school debt, and decide, okay, I'm just going to stick the sucker out, and then getting put on a case, and not just any case, but a big wig case, and then trying your sorority sister. There's a lot of, I would say, fantasy elements about this movie, but I say all this, and that in of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. The only reason I mention it, though, is that it's good to have aspirations, but, this is a movie. If it doesn't work out this way, do not blame the movie, and do not blame yourself. You can blame yourself for other things that you do wrong, maybe you didn't study hard enough, or maybe you were pursuing the wrong guy, or girl, whatever. But this movie, and movies in general, I should add, shouldn't be viewed as this pinnacle of real life, you know. They're there to serve as entertainment, to distract us from our real lives for a few hours, to give us a sense of hope, or a sense of dread, or to scare us, or to really tap into any of our emotions. Uh, my real point is, though, this movie's not going to give you the sense of realism that you're looking for, that most people are looking for these days, it seems. But the good news, this is also 2001. The other thing about this is that, you know, they really do accentuate on the stereotypes a bit. You have the lesbian that really isn't given a lot of character outside of, yeah, I'm a feminist and I'm a lesbian. I think it would have been pretty fun to see more about her. I'm not going to really blame that on this movie. It's just going to be the fact that it's 2001 and they really haven't been able to really write, you know, people that are appreciative of the same sex. You know, they haven't really written those characters that much or that often, and it hasn't been as commonplace. And I think if someone ended up remaking Legally Blonde, which that seems like way too short of a time to do that, but truthfully, it seems possible anymore that someone's going to remake something from 2 years ago. You know, think of the Spider-Man movies, you know, in the last decade. They didn't even need to wait a whole decade between the third movie and the remakes. Moving on. You have some professors that don't seem like they really get what's going on, especially with Calloway, but I have to be honest, that's really more of just his character as opposed to a flaw of the movie. It's certainly not a movie, if you're looking for like learning how to practice law, this isn't going to be a movie. This is going to be a movie that like shows you the basics of law and, you know, talking about some general concepts and how to apply things in a broader sense. You know, this is a more overview-esque movie of law as opposed to, this is how you're going to study law. It is going to be this easy. You can still go to parties and be a Playboy bunny. It is okay. There's a lot more sacrifice and blood and sweat and tears that goes on. I think the sorority girls that hang out with Elle in the beginning don't really have a lot of texture to them, have a lot of substance. I kind of wish they had a little more. I kind of wish they weren't as airheaded. It seemed that they only broke the sorority conventions for Elle Woods. For anyone else that was in that sorority and with her in that time, they were all, you know, just a bunch of young and dumb girls. You know, one was blonde and the other one was like a redhead brunette mixture. And they always seemed very vapid. But maybe that was the point, you know, maybe she just had vapid friends and that Elle was just happened to be this really, really, really intelligent young woman. So, I think the other thing too is, especially with the gay men, no designers, that seems such, well, I wouldn't harp on that, except it was a pivotal point in this case, and let's just say I'm glad that she was right in this case, you know? Even if a stereotype is not 100% correct, which I can't imagine anything always eternally being 100% correct from a subjective manner when it's a matter of opinion, being 100% correct is not likely to happen. But I'm just glad it worked out for her, because I'm just trying to imagine if he just happened to be the one straight man that knew the Prada designer based on the kind of shoe, you know, that would have really foiled all of Elle's hard work. So I'm just gonna say that she was fortunate. But really, there isn't that much bad about this movie. It's so much fun. It's really enjoyable. It's quite hilarious seeing Elle navigate through all of these people and just show that she is not just some dumb blonde. It's really quite a sight. So one of the best parts of this movie is the writing. There are quite a few quotable moments from this movie, and let me just read a few of them to you to really show my favorite parts about this movie. I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? This really isn't much funny as much as a great moment of realization for Elle that she needs to move the hell on from Warner. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. Yeah. Unless you're happy for the wrong reasons. She managed to find the best manicurist in the prison. It's a hard knock life to get those good kind of nails. Don't stomp your last season Prada shoes at me, honey. Well, there you go for the piece of incriminating evidence. I heard Madonna went into labor there. Oh, Madonna. Just because I'm not from Vanderbilt means that I'm white trash? And, damn, that's some high standards, dude. You're breaking up with me because I'm too blonde? I just am trying to imagine someone wearing a wig and just wearing like a like a wig for like a brunette. I guess they're not blonde anymore, right? Huh? You got into Harvard Law? What? Like it's hard? Yeah, that's pretty nice. That's quite fun. What's this Vivian got that you don't have? 3 tits? Now, I don't really know if I would find 3 tits more attractive than 2. I would think I was looking at an alien, personally. But I can see the appeal for some people. A spa? Isn't that your mothership? Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Even a good burn against Elle. Yeah, as much as I love Elle, it's nice to see her get burned a little bit. You know, she needs to have some level of humility. And that's why it's really great when she does have those hard moments, that just so you can savor the great moments of hers even more. And finally, my favorite. When I dress up as a frigid bitch, I try not to look too constipated. Elle, you do so well. And I am a poet, and I do know it. So, what would I give this movie in terms of a grade? Well, it's not on the top 250 or bottom 100, but I would probably, I'd probably give this movie probably a B+. I don't really have official scores on the movies that aren't on the top or bottom lists, but I'd probably go somewhere on the A- to B+. If I was going purely on enjoyment, I would say A- or even A. And in terms of technicals, I'd go between A- and a B+. So I probably would say it's toting the line between an A- and a B+. And since it doesn't really play into these ratings too much, I'm not going to make too much of a fuss about it. Alright, well, I've been waiting to do this review for quite a while now, and so I thought I would just tell you how I felt about it and move on from there. Alright, this was a lot of fun to do, and it's already been 15 years since this movie was made. Alright, well, I'll be coming up with more updates later on for other movies, and you'll hear about them soon enough. Alright, I'll see y'all later.